Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I wanted to dwell upon a subject that is quite broad, and usually it takes me the whole semester to teach it. So I'm trying to sum up what I need to say about the peculiarity of the Shia tradition in this regard. I want to follow two paths of inquiry. One is to relate the topic to other Abrahamic traditions, Christianity, Judaism, and whatever tradition has belief in prophethood, resurrection, and the future of humanity. Then we need to pay attention to the Messianic thought that is part of the essential teaching for the future of human beings. Messianic leadership in Abrahamic religions is very much informed by the idea of future of humanity. All these religions, they are thinking about the ultimate salvation of human societies. How are human beings going to be saved in the final days of the history, which is usually known as eschatology? What is the expectation of the religious communities about their belief, about their expectation, and what they have achieved and what they hope to achieve in the futurist plan of a religion? Here I include a very important concept in Islamic tradition, which is al-Mahdawiyya. That means that concept which promises the future coming of al-Mahdi as the Caliph of God, Khalifatullah. And the idea is that I think that it is deeply ingrained in the Quran that the success of human beings is going to be measured in terms of their faith acceptance, the life orientation which will give them hope about what is the ultimate purpose of life in this particular tradition. All world religions do speak about the ultimate goal of creation, and more so in Abrahamic traditions, where there is a belief in what we call the immediacy of the history. Abrahamic traditions begin with a very important promise to human beings that if they come with faith, they will find success in their ultimate outcome of their life. Faith is important, but not only faith, but also the work is of importance. Human beings need to not only believe, but also to act in accordance with their teachings, with the teachings of the prophets, with the teachings of the founders. The ultimate goal, according to Abrahamic traditions, is to relive history as it should ideally be. There is idealization of history, that there will come a time when there will be salvation for the entire humanity, especially for those who have believed in that message. So we do find that Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they all speak about the future coming of a Messiah. It's very interesting that the Quran is speaking about Jesus as the Messiah, Jesus coming in the last days of the history, Jesus coming back. In the Shia tradition, the same tradition becomes combined with the future coming of the Imam. Mahdi and Jesus will come together to establish the rule of the kingdom of God, the rule of justice and equity. So the heartbeat of the Quran and the Abrahamic traditions is to see that justice will be done on earth. The ideal society on earth will be the one that has followed the Abrahamic traditions in the promise that if you work for justice, then God will work with you and will establish with you the justice, the ideal society. In other words, what it does is that the Abrahamic traditions combine the history in such a way that there's a long line of the prophets coming and teaching, and all of them are teaching the same message, that there will be ideal society on this earth. That ideal society will be the society in which justice and equity will prevail. Now, that being the case, it is always left to the community of the believers how to work out the future promise with the reality of the situation. We all know that all religions begin with the religious impulse that promises a lot. But when there comes a time when those promises are not, seen by the believers as being fulfilled. And that's when the idea of the future comes in. When will this happen has been a question in all Abrahamic traditions. When will the Messiah come? When will the ideal society be established? Because part of the religious questions regarding future events is the questions need to be timeless, of timeless significance to human beings. Ideally, they lead to better understanding of things that matter to us as human beings. We human beings have expectations, and that's what these religions are promising. Historical studies of human religiosity are by and large their broader generalizations regarding the future of humanity. So if you are studying Messianic tradition in Judaism, you're studying about the second coming of Jesus Christ in Christianity. All of them are saying that there will be something that will be good for the future of humanity. And that promise is the promise that has been given in the scriptures. So I would say scripturalist traditions provide us with broader generalizations regarding the future of humanity. The context for Abrahamic deliberations about the messianic leadership of humanity is based on both the divine promise and our expectation to see justice and equity on earth. There is expectation. It is a mutual concern about the believing community that we have believed in this God who is just, who is fair, who is going to bring about the ideal society. Now we want to see what happens in the history. Part of the promise, I think, makes it a realism for the people who believe in it. In the early days of Judaism, or in the different aspects of their history, we find that there was always this expectation of the messianic coming back, messianic age being ushered by the Messiah. Part of the Christian, I think, Christian message was based on that Hebraic promise that there will be someone to come and salvage the situation for human beings. In Islamic tradition, from the very beginning, there has been an idea of Nabi Akhiruz Zaman. That means this is the prophet of the last days. In what sense last days? In what sense it is something that needs to be looked at? One can say that all religions begin with a particularist message provided for the believers, for the community in that tradition. But there is also what I call a subtle reference to the age of globalization in these religions. Whether it is Christianity, Judaism, although Judaism became more and more nationalistic, more and more connected with a particular ethnic group in the history, in the early days of Judaism, it was a general sense of justice that Judaism was teaching. It was for everyone, for all human beings. So when Jesus comes, he is actually building upon the Abrahamic traditions, that it is already there, that there is a promise by God to the people, that there will be justice in this world. There will be an ideal rule. When Muhammad comes as the prophet, there is this idea that this is almost the end of prophethood. The end of prophethood will be marked by something that will happen as a revolution that will be global. In this connection, by the way, one can see that there is the global language in Islam is situated in its ethical spirituality, what I call in the Quranic idea of taqwa. Taqwa is the ethical spirituality, whereby we become not only conscious of the divine presence in our life, but we also mold our life in accordance with the requirements of the ethical conduct that is part of the spirituality. No spirituality in Islam or any of the, I think, Abrahamic traditions can emerge without commitment to morality. Morality and spirituality go hand in hand. In this connection, differences of opinion is a good thing for human beings, for the human spiritual development, which attains maturity by intellectual exchange. As I was saying, that there is a global language, there is a universal language in Messianism. Al-Mahdi al-Muntazar, the idea of the future Imam coming to salvage humanity from its unbearable condition, is very much based on a universal expectation. Cultural religious significance of messianic leadership in Abrahamic religions need to be carefully analyzed and understood in the context of human advancement, not only in the religious thought and humanities, but also in science and technology. You have seen my paper that I've sent you for reading for this lecture. I think I am very much aware of the debates that are going on today, that how exactly is this age going to come by? Because there are other religions. For example, there is Ahmadiyya community that believes that the Mahdi has already come, or the last prophet is someone else. And you find that Baha'ism is also based on the same impulse, that there is now the Messianic age, and there will be world religion of peace. All of these things are connected. And I would say that without hesitation, that the globalization that we are talking about is the expectation of future peace in connection with future of humanity. That provides stimulants to discover, however speculatively, what the Quran talks about, the future global community, Ummatan Wahida. Ummatan Wahida is the concept of the Quran, that there will be one community as it was one community. The Noah's community was one community, and there will be future community. There will be again a one community that will come in the future to establish the rule of God on earth. In other words, if you're looking at Christianity's promise about the kingdom of God, and if you look at the Mahdi, the Al-Mahdawiya idea in Islam, they all come together and they merge into the idealism of the future community. There is an expectation that all human community will come back as it was. Kana nasu ummatan wahida. Human beings were one community. Human beings are one community. They're going to be one community. In what sense? There'll be future peace among them. How is there going to be one religion? Are there going to be different religions? All these questions are part of the what we call cultural religious debates among different communities. But I want to come to directly to what I have written in my own book. What I'm going to argue here is that scriptural traditions pay a lot of attention to the text and the context. So here, I want to, I think this disturbance is not good every now and then. There is an idea that is to be sought out in the textual references. Abrahamic traditions are scripturalist. And by that I mean not only the revelation that comes directly from God, but also the teachings of the prophets. What do they teach to the people? How do they conceive of the life of the people? What do they tell them about their responsibilities, about their future coming? All of this becomes actually part of the what I call futurist lore of a religion. The religion thrives upon that. The religion teaches that because hope is a very important issue in religious faith. If we lose hope, there's nothing to stand on. Therefore, human beings need to be hopeful. How would they become hopeful if there is no concrete description of what to expect in future? The future then is very much connected with what we call the importance of mushahada. How do we visualize? How do we see the future and what exactly is going to happen? And here I'm going to use one of the very important texts. There are many texts that I have brought in my book on Islamic Messianism, but this one is uniquely important for us in this particular lecture because here we are dealing with the general Shiite studies. Now I want to emphasize that the doctrine of Imama, of the Imams, is closely connected with the future of Imamate. What exactly will happen after historical period has come to a normal historical end of human life? Because human beings are not expecting to live forever and ever. Imama is a doctrine. Imama is a doctrine of a leader who has been chosen, who has been appointed by God for the community. When the 12th Imam goes into occultation, when he disappears from the face of the history in the physical sense, is he still available in his invisible state? What exactly does it mean to believe that the Imam is in hiding? What does it mean to believe that there is a future when this Imam comes back, reappears? So there are several ideas that come together in the religious language. The idea of the Mahdi is closely connected with the idea of zuhur, appearance. But also it is connected with the idea of ghaiba, the idea of occultation, disappearance. The Imam is not accessible. He is an invisible state. And all these ideas are closely connected to Qaim, the future coming. Who is there going to come in the future to establish justice and peace? Muslims talk about the history having gone wrong in the past, and therefore there has been many mistakes in the history which has damaged the way Islam wanted to present the society. But what is the solution then? Criticism of the history, of the past history, and then working out the future history requires to pay attention to the idea of Mahdi. The Mahdi is that Imam who will come in future to correct everything that has gone wrong. From the time the Prophet died until today, there have been so many occasions when certain things were not done in the way they should have been done. And therefore we lost touch with the ideal society that Islam wanted. This idealism is driving force. But this idealism has to be promised in a textual way. How exactly would the text provide that kind of, theology? We are moving towards the theology of futurism. Today people are talking about the end of history. And there are several books written on it. Fukuyama's is the most famous one. That he thought that American democracy, or the way liberal democracy has been established, is actually the end of history. Human beings will not need any corrective anymore. Americans have provided it. What we're seeing today, that no, that's not true. that American liberal democracy is not liberal in any sense that you and I understand, or people in different world understand, different countries understand. So we are still searching for the future. We are still searching for what will mark the end of history. What exactly is going to be the human situation? The text that I have chosen is actually an open text. When I say open text, means it is still open to recitation, still open to reading and interpretation. But I want you to understand how important and central is this text today for us to understand the future of futurism. What exactly is Mahdawiya teaching us? How exactly should we understand the Shiite belief in Ajjar Allah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif? When the Shia say, "Oh God, hasten the delivery," so that we can then enjoy the fruits of that deliverance from you through the Imam who comes to establish justice and equity. Now that's a very central doctrine. But let us see the ramifications of this doctrine. It was the fourth Imam, Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zain al-Abidin, who was asked by one of his companions, Abu Khalid al-Kabuli. He asked Imam about the state of those who will experience the occultation, ghaiba, in the future. Keep this, I think, psychological dimension in mind as we talk about it, that there is an expectation when you believe in Imam, then you want the Imam to come to be there present to guide you. You can't just think about the idea of Imam and not believe that he is the one who's going to come and going to establish his rule of justice and equity. People have sought this, prediction and prophecy in all the history, and they have not found as yet an answer. Imam Zain al-Abidin, Ali ibn al-Hussein, is responding. The occultation for the Wali of God. It's very important to keep in mind that he's describing the Mahdi as the friend of God. The 12th legatee of the Prophet and the Imams will be prolonged beyond normal span of life. That's why there is doubt today. Does he exist? In what sense does he exist? And I think that expectations, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, is very much based on that idea that one day that friend of God will come back, will be prolonged beyond human normal span of life. Abu Khalid, the people of that age who will be among the adherents of the Imam and will be awaiting his emergence as the Mahdi, will be the best of all the believers. Best of all the believers. What does that mean? Is it something visual? Because God will endow them. Now listen to this. God will endow them with intuitive reason, al-uqul, the ability to understand the depth of the matter. They will be able to know science. They will be able to know technology to their best ability, and knowledge of spiritual truths, al-ma'rifah. I'm translating it as spiritual truth. Some have translated as gnosis or Gnosticism, but I think the correct way of understanding is that knowledge which leads you to affirm your spiritual connections. Fine. As a consequence, the occultation for them will become like mushahada. They'll become like, the age of actual visibility of the Imam. What this hadith is trying to say is that our idea about the future of the Imam, our idea about our belief in the Imam is actually a purification of the self. We purify ourselves to the extent when we achieve spiritual clarity and spiritual knowledge in such a way that the occultation of the Imam actually is experienced as if it is the real Imam who is with us. In other words, it's no more ghaiba. Ghaiba is, invisibility is, and I explain it to my students quite often. They ask me, what does that mean, invisible? Invisibility is not total absence. When I call out roll in the classroom, I call out the names of the students. And a student, I mark them as pre and A, present and absent. Absent doesn't mean that that person does not exist. It simply means that that person is not there at that particular time. What we are trying to understand, the messianic idea in Shiism, is that Shiism is nurturing the idea of messianic Imam in a way whereby the belief in the hidden Imam turns into, becomes intuitively presence of the Imam. I'm talking completely in abstract terms. What does that mean? Intuitively, mushahada actually means that you are able to witness with your sense perception. That's what mushahada is. You are interacting with the reality in such a way that the reality becomes more clear to you. When you say, I have experienced mushahada, sometimes you love your mother so much, you think about her, and all of a sudden in the sleep, or while you're sitting somewhere, all of a sudden you feel as if she is present with you. Not that she is there, I don't know. It all depends upon the experience and our ability to move in the realm of experience to that level. What I'm suggesting here is that the mushahada of the Imam is in such a way that he is not absent, but he is present spiritually to guide us, to lead us. And therefore, there's a general belief among the Shia community, that the Imam is accessible, even while he is in the ghaiba, in occultation. There are many who have experienced his presence at the last moment, or at the time when they were searching, and finally they saw him, or they felt that he was there. I'm talking about the realm that is not scientifically supported, by the way. It's not empirically established. But I also say this quite clearly, that there are many issues in religion that are not empirically established. It's like the existence of God. Many philosophers have spent lifetime trying to prove the existence of God, and yet they have not been able to provide anything more than the metaphysical argumentation. What I'm suggesting is that there are matters in religion, among which there's also messianic expectation, that are based on deep human faith in the good future of humanity. The question arises in all religions: are we supposed to live a miserable life in this world, and then die and expect nothing to happen? You and I are seeing, witnesses the history all the time. Imagine what coronavirus taught us, how the COVID-19 emerged and unfolded today. You and I were wondering, why should this happen at the age when we have advanced so much medically? Medicine has moved in the direction of research so much that we should not be experiencing this ability that we are experiencing now, and we are seeing it that nothing is happening to us. I think that, if anything, in my opinion, my very humble opinion, pandemic taught us even more clearly what does it mean to believe in spirituality. Because many issues that you and I are faced with are not to be physically treated, they are spiritually to be treated. We need spiritual advancement for us to be treated and to regain our original peace with which we were created. ننزل من القرآن ما هو فيه شفاء ورحمة. We have revealed the Quran in such a way that in the verses of the Quran there is, healing, there is the divine mercy, and there is healing. And we are searching for where exactly is their healing in this ayat of the Quran. The Quran is making quite a clear promise that you were made to be one, united community on this earth, living in peace and in tolerance with one another. God did not say you will not disagree with one another, but God did say that you will always find spiritual path to be peaceful coexistence. And I think that was the essence of Quranic messianism. The Quran made a promise that the future of humanity will be determined by their ability to believe in God. Which God would they believe in? The God who is adil, who is just. The God who is going to take all the reckoning, muhasabah. He is going to sharpen us, to prepare our accounting, to know what we are doing in this world. If that's what the Quran is teaching, then one has to also believe that the Quran also says that the prophets have come at the most critical period in the human history, when things were completely reckless. So when you look at the history of Meccan society, by the way, before the Prophet Muhammad emerges, it's quite clear that that period was a period of crisis. The orphans were neglected, the poor not taken care of. Commercialization of the society had reached materialism to the unmanageable levels. Social imbalances, discriminations, everything was there in the 7th century Arabian society. Meccan society was known for its indifference to the people's suffering. And here the Quran came, and you read the Quran, is a shamsu kubirat. When the sun will become dark, and when that day will come, when the resurrection will occur, and human beings who have collected all this wealth, they'll be saying, where should I go? Where should I go with my health, with my wealth? And the wealth will know of no help. Nothing in the world is going to help illa amal salih, except for the good deeds that human beings will do. When I look at the Quran as a general, document, I see that the ethical message of the Quran is messianic. You prepare yourself. You work for your future yourself, and you will bear the fruits of the future. But how can that happen is something that we need to ponder out. Let me recapture what I have spoken until now. I think I have moved in two directions. On the comparative level, I believe that all Abrahamic traditions, all monotheistic traditions, and I would say even other traditions of the East Asia, West Asia, all of them have believed in the future coming of a savior who would put things together for humanity. Human beings are, created in such a way that they do not always abide by the rules, and they break those rules and they see the consequences. I would say that all religions are teaching us consequential ethics. If you don't follow these rules, this is what's going to happen to you. Your consequences will be, determined by the way you are acting. All of these things, when you put together, you have in comparative aspect of Abrahamic traditions. All traditions are geared towards leading human beings to an ideal situation. And that can come through correction, that can come through revision of history, that how the history will unfold, show us our mistakes, and how we'll be determined not to repeat those mistakes. And that's where Islamic messianism and all other messianisms are located. The second direction that I followed was the direction of the Shia tradition. I would say Islamic tradition in general. Even Ibn Khaldun, when he writes about the history, he writes about the messianic idea among all Muslims. All Muslims, regardless, they follow this. They know this tradition, that there is what we call the tradition of the future coming of the Imam. Now, Although Ibn Khaldun will say, this is not historically sustainable, but here we have general understanding of all Muslims. Now I would say that if you look at the books of the Hadith, I have emphasized the importance of the text. And I must say that on studying all the texts, whether Sunni or Shi'i, all of them, they all speak about the future coming of the Mahdi. And it has been something that has been expected throughout the history. In the 14th century, we found in India the Mahdaviya movement. Then we saw in 19th century in Sudan, the Mahdi. All of these things are happening with the clear idea, clear notion that there will be future savior of the community. Fine. We are now coming to the very important issue that should be presented to us in a way that is, I think I know now what's okay. The text that I brought in front of you, I think I've depended upon is telling us something much more intricate in the Messianic tradition. It is trying to tell the Ummah, the community, that you cannot sit idle, not do anything about your future, in the expectation that the future Imam will come and will do everything that is needed. No. What I see in the text is that human beings who are the recipients of the direct and personal communication from God, they must know that they need to engage in investigation. They need to understand the divine will through active participation in the improvement of human society. So I would say Shi'i Messianism is looking at the fulfillment of history in the future. But that future is in the hands of human beings, of the believers. If the human beings are going to complain on the day of judgment saying that we did not see that ideal rule, then the answer will be, you did not work for it. You did not do enough for it. What did you do for the future of the human beings? Did you create institutions that would sustain the needs of the people in the future? Did you work out towards solving the poverty of the people? Did you work out towards taking care of the orphan? The Quranic message is a universal message. It's an ethical, spiritual message. It's not saying that I am limited to the time of the Prophet. No, I want you to take up the challenge all the time as long as you read the Quran. In other words, human being is not only the recipient of a closed book. Rather, human beings are recipient of an open book. That open book is the Quran. That open book is the Hadith of the Sunnah. You find that provides you with the tools of investigation, ijtihad. How do you do it? How do you engage in this? Because ijtihad could be very much personal, subjective ijtihad. And it might not produce the results. I might not be able to convince my fellow scholars what I believe in, how I came to that decision. Because it will be impossible for me to talk about something without a medium. That medium in Islam is, in most cases, it is a text. Text of the Quran. Text of the Hadith. These texts are the ones who help us to understand what exactly is the faith demanding from us. The researcher must first establish that the text is a valid command from God. There could be a text that has been concocted, contrived, and it's not from God, rather it is from someone's, personal likes and dislikes. So the first duty that we have in the collective ijtihad that is taking place, and I don't think this ijtihad today in science and technology, in religion and in ethics is a work of one person. We don't have Jami' al-Mujtahid. We don't have one Mujtahid who knows everything. It's impossible. the medical science, engineering, genetic sciences, all of these require specialization. And our scholars have to depend on Ahl al-Khibra. They have to depend upon the expert to come and tell them. So what are we then talking about? If human agency is an important part of the ijtihad, and I dare say, that this is not the divine will, that it should be limited only to one or two persons. Rather, there has to be collective effort, collective ijtihad to bring about the changes that are needed in the society. It is only then that we can proceed to investigate the precise meaning of the text. Human agents negotiate the process of determining the authenticity and the application and meaning of the text. So we read many texts that the Imam will come and he will distribute the wealth among people, and there'll be no one left poor. Now, if you look at the text, and if you don't understand the text in its full implications, then you will be missing a point. Imam is going to come and he's going to open the wealth and distribute among people without anyone. The hadith also tells us that he will have 313 parliamentarians who will be helping him out. All of these things are part of the Messianic tradition. In other words, out of this 313 there will be 50 women. Oh my goodness, we don't even know, we don't even hear about it. This ijtihad will be not only conducted by men, it will be also conducted by women. If women are not participating in the futurist plan of the humanity, then I must say, very, very humbly I must say, then we have failed to understand the divine will. Because the divine will created Adam and Hawa. There were two created from the same source, from the same root, as the Quran is insisting. Woman was not created of the rib of Adam. No, they came from the same nafs and wahida, and that's what they were. They are together to work together, and they will appear together in the messianic life. If we don't understand this, then we don't understand Fatimatu Zahra, the Lady of Light. That means Fatimatu Zahra should not be even considered as part of the divine plan. Whereas we see that Fatimatu Zahra is the center of the divine plan, just as Maryam, is the center of the Christian plan. Now, whatever the Protestants might do and might not follow what the Catholics are, that's not my point. My point is that men and women have to negotiate a process of determining the authenticity and the ramifications of the text. You cannot say that Messianic tradition is a male-dominated tradition. I remember reading when fundamentalism in the 70s and 80s started, flourishing, so to speak. And there were so many works written by, men, fundamentalist leaders, and they just overlooked what the women could do and what the women have done throughout the history. What I'm reading, when I read the hadith, the text, what I'm finding to be very important is that it is the prophetic knowledge that is informing the substance of the text. Please listen carefully. Messianic tradition will not be comprehensible without accepting a presumption about the way this Messianic tradition is being communicated by the founder of Islam. To be even more clear, we need to go back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to find out what exactly he said. In one of the very interesting situations that I find mentioned here, I want you to be with me, by the way. It's an important, beautiful hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Oh my goodness. I couldn't have expected any better text to make an argument. But the following hadith underscores the moral depravity of the Muslim society during the period of al-intidhar, al-ijtihad. Look at this, by the way, I'm connecting the two, al-intizar and ijtihad. I think we need to keep in mind that it is the awaiting that creates the need to be actively, proactive, about messianism. So a man comes and asks the Prophet about the hour, as-sa'a. That is the last judgment. The Prophet asked, where is the person who asked about the hour, about the sa'a? Aina huwa? And the man said, here I am, O Prophet of God. I asked you that question. What was the question? I repeat it for your, clarity. He asked the Prophet, when is the last hour coming? When will the Qiyamah come, so to speak? When will the Mahdi come? When will the Messianic salvation appear on the face of history? The Prophet said, when the trust is squandered, then you should expect the hour. My goodness. You will not be able to trust anyone. The future of the humanity, look at the tragedy of humanity. You can't trust even the most, those who are conceived in your mind to be most trustworthy. You'll say, oh my goodness, how can I trust these people when they break their promises all the time? When the trust is squandered, then you should expect the hour. You should expect the Imam to come back. You should expect the Messianic age to appear. And the things and the revolution to start. The man asked again, how does a trust become squandered? What happens? How do I know? I have no such ability. I'm an ordinary person. I have no such ability to know how this trust is squandered. The Prophet said, when a matter is handed over to a disqualified person, then you should expect the hour. Oh my goodness. We have so many disqualified professors. How about other people? How professors who don't know much, who have got their PhDs and they have not done any further work. They have not done any clear, oh, you should come and see, the universities today. Not everyone is working hard. There are some lazy minds. These are the people, who are claiming that we know everything. That means they are disqualified to teach, and they teach. They are disqualified to lead, and they lead. They are disqualified to speak with authority, and they do. In other words, what they are doing is that they are shattering the minimum moral standards that human beings expect in the future of the society. Future of the society, my friends, my brothers and sisters, is based upon seeing the qualified people leading us. They could be teachers, they could be investigators, they could be parents. Today the parents are failing to become parents. Can you imagine what the parents are doing at home? Can you imagine how deprived are the students in the classrooms? It reminds me of this very interesting book that I saw some years ago and written by James Kilpatrick. This is a Catholic, individual, and he wrote a beautiful book. Why Johnny can't tell right from wrong? Yes, why Johnny can't tell right from wrong? Because the teacher who stands in the classroom is not teaching the way he should be teaching. Because I'm not only supposed to teach, but I'm also supposed to set an example. I can't just teach saying that my obligations are over. I've given you information. No, my students are looking at me with two eyes. One is the eye of the knowledge, and the second is the eye of this personality. This is what the Prophet is saying. When will the trust become squandered? Imagine a doctor today, would tell us, you and I are more, empirically oriented when it comes to medical information. We do look at medical information very carefully before it comes. When they are talking about the vaccinations, all of this thing. By the way, this whole year, last year, has been a year of learning for us. What exactly is, genetically transmitted? What is a DNA? What is an RNA? All of these things have become more visible because of coronavirus. In other words, we need to be shaken up sometimes to find out who is qualified to speak on our behalf and who is not qualified to speak. I think one of the tragedies of the Messianic age is going to be people who claim to know things and they don't know things. People who claim to set an example who don't have example to set. All of these things, Sahih Bukhari in Kitab al-Ilm, hadith number 5 that I read in front of you, the Prophet is laying down the standard of future leadership. Who will become the leader in future? And I'll tell you by the way, that this has come through in the Quran. Because in the Quran we are told about the testing that was done of Abraham. Abraham was tested. He was asked questions by God, and he came out successful. You know, he was asked about kalimatun, he was asked about what God wanted to know from him. When he finished, he said, okay, in return for your success in exam, I'm giving you something. Inni ja'aluka linnasi imama. I'm going to make you imam for the future, for all the humanity, and nas, not believers. When Abraham became the imam for the future, it was based on qualification that he passed the exam that God had set for him. And that exam, you and I know what happened, right? You and I know that Ismail was taken and he had to be sacrificed, and Hazrat Ibrahim did go and fulfill the promise that he made to God, and he fulfilled the commandment, and God saved his son. But when this happened, Hazrat Ibrahim said, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي, how about my descendants? Oh God, you are saying that I am, Ibrahim knew that he was going to die soon. Then in that case, who will then inherit the imamate? Who will become the imam? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, says, and he is asking, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي, will my descendants, become the imams after me? لا ينال أحد الظالمين. I will not make that promise to the wrongdoers among your children. In other words, Imam has to be the one who is, just, who is, exemplifying the most important authority in human life, the moral authority. And anybody, who is not qualified will not become the Imam. This is, by the way, amazing. That the Quran is seeing the future. Today you and I are worried about the world. Oh, we know who is leading the world. Can the world be saved by the likes of Trump, for example? I'm being very clear here. I don't have anything to hide. I'm not afraid of anything. I can say it quite clearly that if we had a leader like him for 8 or 10 or 12 years, what will happen to this world? Not only racism will reappear, every kind of discrimination will appear. And I think that will be a disastrous situation. What I find to be, I think, important in the Messianic tradition of Islam, of the Shiism, is that the core of Shi ideology, the core of Shi, emphasis on the Al-Mahdi is justice and equity. Justice, qist wal-adl. Justice and equity. In other words, what the hadith is talking about is that time will come when human beings will receive what they deserve to receive. They will be given what they are, looking for. In other words, what we find to be very important here is that Messianic tradition in Islam is based with all the sister traditions of Abrahamic traditions and other traditions of the world, where there is a promise for the betterment of humanity. What will become to human beings? And the Quran, and I think the Hadith, Messianic tradition, as I mentioned quite clearly, is all-inclusive. All-inclusive in the sense that Al-Mahdi is a universal Imam. This is what the Shia believe. Al-Mahdi al-Muntazar is a universal Imam who is the 12th Imam of the Twelver Shiism, but he is also the one who has been promised to all Muslims to be the Mahdi Akhirul Zaman. And he will come and he will establish the rule of justice and equity. By that we mean that we can look up and we can look out for the empirical proof for the existence and for the coming back of the Imam. I don't think it's a subjective matter when Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein says that No, you will be able to see the Imam in the Ghaiba, kamashahida. You will see it exactly the way you are, as if you are witnessing him in front of you. How can that be possible when the Ghaiba has lasted all these times? When the Ghaiba has, come for almost now 13 to 12 centuries. And when the occultation is for 12 centuries, the test is for the faith to continue. How does the faith continue today? So we have many, many traditions that speak about the people who met the Imam during this time, who saw the Imam during this time. They went they went to Hajj for several years so that they would meet the Imam, because the Imam is there in every Hajj. He comes in every Hajj, even now. That's what the belief is, and I'm not responsible to prove it or to disprove it. My notion here is that there is something that is, sparking, that is providing the spark to the believer that let me go, let me prepare myself, let me be my best so that maybe I will see my Imam. There are people who go for Hajj, right? And they go for Hajj, and what do they achieve? Nothing. When they come back, they are the same people. Nothing has changed in them. No improvement whatsoever. Whereas what the Quran is trying to say is that when you are following all God's commandments, then you become qualitatively different. You are different. You are not a hateful individual. You are not a person who is looking down upon others. No. You are an example. You are an exemplar. You come, in front of all these in order for you to stand out as a light, as a beacon of example. And this is what we see. There are people. Where do you have you noticed yourself when you see a good person? You are inside, you are internally happy. You become extremely overjoyed, even without you knowing. I meet sometimes my Jewish friends, my Christian friends, my Hindu friends, all of them. I try to see, is there something that I can notice? And I do find something very positive, something very, very powerful in them, in their behavior, so that I can say that this is, a spark from that quality of Salihin. This is Rabbi Habli Hukman wal Hikni bis Salihin. Give me the ability to judge, Ya Allah, give me the ability to judge, and then connect me with the good people. Doesn't say Muslim or non-Muslim, says Al Hikni bis Salihin. Connect me with the good people. I want to be connected with good people, and that's where I will find my salvation. My brothers and sisters, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I am waiting for your good questions, your critical comments that will help me to improve next time when I teach you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sachedina, thank you very much for your lecture. We really appreciate your presence and your time. There are some questions, so anyone who wants to ask some questions, please unmute yourself and start talking.
Salam alaikum. Thank you so much for your impressive lecture in this evening of Friday, the day which designated for Imam Zaman alayhi salam. I really appreciated it. Thank you. I have two questions. First, how do you see the relationship between utopia and utopian idea in Shia and Messianism? Okay, and this is for my first question. And second question, most of the research have done in terms of Imam Zaman, they see the occultation and revival of Imam Zaman in the future, but there is no research and seldom research that study Imam Zaman as a Imam Hayy and lived Imam. What what is your idea about
Brother
this
Nasrawi, I think
concept
your connection is
that
poor.
Imam Zaman is high, and it is alive, and you can connect with him. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me just handle briefly one question about utopia. I think utopian ideals are prevalent in many, many traditions of the world. It has become more prominent for political messianism. When politicians have sought to use messianic expectation to further their claim to establish a rule of justice and equity. So it is there. I don't deny that there are, ideologies that are political and they are politically motivated. And I think even religion, sometimes might be speaking about undoable. Not everything that the religion teaches, especially through the interpretation and ramifications of the original text. Original texts are very plain and clear. Rule of justice and equity. If you don't see justice and equity, it is not utopia. You are talking about justice in distributive sense. Al-Qist. Al-Qist is distributing the wealth in such a way that more people are able to take advantage of it. That's how it is. And justice, adl, is, to keep things in its proper place. That means trying to help people to see the fairness in what they are demanding. If I'm not educated and and I'm expecting the utopian leader to make me rich overnight, then that's unrealistic. What the religion is teaching is realism. I always say that Quranic moral is moral realism. You do work and you will be provided. If you don't work, you will not be provided. In other words, you have to take action first and then expect God to take your hand and move you. When you develop in yourself spiritual and moral awareness, then God will teach you. Otherwise, God will not teach you. Shaitan will teach you. I don't know who will teach you. I don't know really, because there are so many teachers that we accept so easily in this world. Okay? So I think I didn't get the gist of your second question, but let me move on. I think we have surely, I want precise questions and even critical ones, I don't mind at all. I would request you to avoid a short lecture in your question. I want you to ask questions that are really right to the point. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Sachedina. Thank you for your time. How do we understand, on one hand, that the prophet is the seal or the last prophet, and then on the other hand, that the concept of the Mahdi and his arrival with Jesus on the other hand?
Okay, so that question is very good. I think what we are realizing that Nabi Akhirul Zaman, the seal, Khatam al-Anbiya, means there'll be no prophet after him. That's what it means. He's the seal of the prophet. That means he has done in revelation what was needed for human societies for the future. In other words, the Quran became a text of the future communities of the world. And today it is true that the more we read the Quran, the more we understand the future plan that the Quran has. So let us understand it very clearly that Khatm al-Anbiya does not mean Khatm al-Awliya. Khatm al-Awliya is the wali who is coming for the last time when the human beings need him. And this wali is actually heir to the prophethood. Yes, there will be no prophethood, but there will be imamate will continue. There are many who claim to be imams, by the way. How many more people claim to be the Mahdi? Do you know in history? I've written a separate article on that one. How Mahdi in different parts of the world emerge. And even up to now, when 1400, years were, marked, there was, the appearance of the Mahdi also in Najaf. So you have so many people who claim to be the Imam and who claim to be, saying that will come to save you. But what the Prophet ﷺ did was that he said, with the Mahdi, Jesus will come. So Jesus and Mahdi are together. They cannot be separated. If anybody claims that I am the Mahdi, then we can ask, where is Jesus then? We need to see both of you together. And that's what the Hadith says. And that's why many Sunni authors, by the way, claim that Jesus and Mahdi are one and the same. They're identical. But that's not, by the way I see the text. The texts are talking about two different people, two different personalities. One is the Mahdi, the descendant of Prophet Muhammad, and one is Jesus. And he is the descendant of Ishaq, by the way. So you find that both of them will come together. I'm talking about the Hadith, by the way.
So any other questions or comments or observations?
I have a question. Assalamu alaikum. I read this hadith basically where it's saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had originally planned the establishment of his order on earth at a certain time, but then he delayed it after Imam Hussein alayhi salam was murdered and slaughtered. So can you talk a little bit about that? Have you heard this hadith?
I have read many hadiths of this type, by the way. And I see them. I have written another article for that some of these hadiths are reflecting their own time. So whenever I open hadith, I go and find out when was it spread, the time of its circulation. And it gives me an idea of when exactly historically this hadith was known or spoken about. And you can actually fix the timing. The times are when, imagine there are hadiths talking about Mongol invasion. And Mongol invasion took place in 13th century. And you do see that the hadiths that were written at that time, are, written by, Al-Muhaqqiq al-Hilli, or Muhaqqiq, al-Hindi. All of them, they are using these hadiths to talk about the time during which they can, actually collate and say, this is the time. Imam Hussein's tragedy, when it was a trauma in the Islamic history, it happened at a time when we did not expect the Ummah to forget the Prophet so easily and kill the Prophet's grandson so mercilessly. Nobody believed that could happen. I think there was a lot of speculation about how God is going to, take a revenge on it. When I read Tabari, for example, a historian, he says on the day of Ashura, wherever they picked up the water pot, they found blood. Now, there is no empirical way for us to establish that. But Tabari will not say something he had not seen, he had not observed. So I don't know how to verify such information in the history books. In other words, there are so many hadiths like this, by the way, and they cannot be taken on face value. They must be collated in the context of the history and what was happening in the Muslim Empire at that time. When the British started ruling Sudan, for example, when they went from Egypt to Sudan, that was the time when the prophecies about British rule ending and this and that was were announced in the hadiths, that there will be Muhammad bin Abdullah and he will come and he will destroy the British throne and all these things. So you can read the hadiths. When Iran and Iraq fought, for example, and when Iraq was conquered, I was in Iraq and I saw hadiths about praising Saddam Hussein and making him the agent of Allah on that day, and making announcement that he will establish the rule of equity and justice on earth. And whereas you and I know quite well that Saddam could have never done it. He was not even concerned with the justice or anything of that sort. So there are so many hadiths of that kind, and my tendency is, if I don't see hadiths in some ways closer to the meaning of what the Quran is teaching, then I ignore them.
Assalamu alaikum, doctor.
I see Chris has a hand.
Yes.
Here, yes, yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
And then Hamid, yes.
Yes.
Could I take you back to the first part of your talk and to the centrality of taqwa as a purification of the individual and of the people, as a preparation for the return of the Mahdi. And then, if I understood you correctly, you were saying that this spiritual purification can bring us to that spiritual level of knowledge in which actually we penetrate the khayba. And we have, in a sense, then, a contact and interaction with the Messianic age. Now, theologically, we would call that realized eschatology. So is this an accurate portrayal of what you were saying?
Yes. Thank you so much, Chris. This is very, very interesting question, and it is actually a topic for a whole lecture. But let me be brief, with what you have actually probed me to think about. It's a good, way of moving forward in the topic. I think it is true that the spiritual dimension of human beings has not been explored very actively by Muslims. Muslims, yes, we do that in Irfan, we do that in Tasawwuf, and that's where we find these, statements about how, the disciples used to connect with the master away from, physically away. So we have Uwais al-Qarani, for example, the Sufi, the companion of the Prophet, who was in Yemen and used to be able to feel the Prophet's presence in Yemen, who was in Medina at that point. In other words, space does not mean any separation in the real sense of the word. What it means is that human ability is there to experience the divine, to experience the hidden matter in no other way than self-purification. Spiritual, this taqwa is, by the way, the definition of taqwa is spiritual moral awareness. That means you do something knowing very well that you are being watched by God. You are never alone. You are there being watched by God, and you become very much familiar with the divine presence in your life. So if nobody is watching, you are still aware of it. And I think that's what I found to be very close to the mushahada that I'm talking about. The mushahada in that hadith of Imam Zain al-Abidin makes it quite clear that you need to move into self-purification of your intuitive abilities. How would the intuitive abilities, uqul, how would the uqul be purified? It's through the taqwa. Taqwa purifies it. Human reason, by the way, can be very arrogant, and it can claim something that it does not experience at all. And yet, with the use of the language today, many scholars write as if they are rationally, very clear. No, they are not rationally logical at all, and yet they claim it to be that way. Quite likely, by the way, those who are spiritual also, they claim to be spiritual. They're not really spiritual. So I'm aware of the dangers, by the way, that there could be people who are claiming that we know everything. I'm spiritual, I can tell you this. And yet I think what this hadith does is that you need to bring your reasoning capacities, your intuitive capacities to the perfection level, so that you can feel that I'm actually sitting in front of the Imam. While I'm talking to you, I am talking about the Imam as if I see him. Can this be possible? My spiritual teachers in Qom, for example, used to tell me that many a times they said, I have no proof. Please don't ask me to provide a proof. But my spiritual teachers, Isfahani, somebody, that I know very close, would tell me that I could feel that the Imam was there. I can't prove to you anything. And now I'm not putting any claim in front of you. I'm simply saying the possibility is there. You purify yourself and you will see it. You will see the presence. So I think that it is a double-edged sword, by the way. Chris, I think what it does is that it opens the possibility on the one hand, and on the second hand, you find that it has the possibility of being manipulated by those who are charlatans, who might claim something they have not experienced, who might not really have got that kind of mushahada. There are people who can claim that. After all, that claim is so individual and so subjective. Who can, ask you to prove it? And if they ask you to prove it, you can't really do it empirically. I see another hand here.
Assalamu alaikum, doctor.
Alaikum salam.
My question, I have two questions. Is there a sense of the signs of the times humanity will witness before the Mahdi's appearance? And are there any indications that that would happen before humanity destroys what is left of Allah's creation?
Yeah, two questions are very theologically important. This is, by the way, it's not a realistic eschatology, which Chris mentioned, that some kind of realism is attached to the future plan when we talk about spirituality. Here, I think the important issue is to keep in mind that many of these predictions in the historical period are contextually important to understand. I remember that I grew up in Tanzania, and in the 60s when I was growing up, recently, there were, women were dressing up without the veil, and they were putting their heads up, and and the mullahs on the pulpits would say, the Akhir Zaman has come, the time has come, because it says that women will be dressing up like, the hump of a camel on their head, Now, it certainly, reflected the time in which we were living. Then came the time when, women started wearing, short skirts, and men started, putting all kinds of things. In other words, many of these predictions reflect the time in which we live. I have now read in Yawm al-Khalas, there's a book, by the way, written by a Lebanese, scholar, the day of salvation, Yawm al-Khalas. He speaks about technology, how technology is going to conquer and give human beings arrogance and the ability. I think the way I saw coronavirus, for example, was a negation of such a claim on the part of science, and not knowing who is this coronavirus, how come it, it's very funny, by the way. I say funny because usually these things happen in the third world, whereas coronavirus started in the first world. And then, therefore, the North could not blame the South that you are the cause of all these problems. The South now says that you are the cause of the problem to the North. In other words, it's so easy to, come together and to say, oh yeah, these are the signs of the last days of the Mahdi. Now the Mahdi will come. Whereas what I think is the hadith of Sahih Bukhari, which says that you will see more and more people assuming responsible positions when they are not qualified enough. That's my key. I'm a chair of the department, so I see my colleagues, I evaluate them, I do all of these things, and fortunately I have very good bunch of people working with me. But there are other departments and there are other chairs of the departments that tell me that, oh my God, you don't know what the claims look like on the paper. In other words, you have no end to human, claims of being in the ideal position, to overrule. In other words, I see, if you ask me, then I look at the Prophet's one answer to be a key. Disqualified people assuming important responsibilities. And we will not be able to do anything about that. They will be either using their own, aura, own, the way they look, the way they dress up, all of these things will come to aid them in their claims. May God save us from those days.
Amen. Thank you, Doctor.
Yes. You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Some very good questions. This will be good for the future, The future class. I could teach the whole semester this whole topic, but that's for the Hikmat Institute to decide in the future,
Absolutely. It will be a great pleasure for us, inshallah, to have you, Doctor.
I know Chris.
It will be an honor for us.
He's the same my Chris, right?
See, we have a good folk here. So, inshallah, we can ask you to promise us here that, inshallah, in the future, we will have this opportunity to have you again, inshallah, in our programs. It will be an honor for us.
I have finished the book on Islamic ethics now, which is being published by Oxford, and it should come out in September. And I think that will become a good source for a number of us. I don't claim any perfection, no way. It's a human effort. So I'm trying to interpret what Islamic ethics is all about, and it's my interpretation, which can be challenged by any of you, by the way. It's not that if I am, claiming it, then no, I'm touchable. No, I'm not touchable. I'm intouchable. I'm not intouchable. I'm touchable. You can touch me and criticize me and break me if you want to. But it's very important I think, to go towards the very heart of the Quran, which is to go towards the ethics. What is Quran telling us in terms of our actions? What is it that it wants us to do? Because I see Islam as a religion of action. You need to prove your membership by behaving in a certain way. If you are the one who is engaging in hatred and discrimination, then you are not qualified really to claim that I am a Muslim. Or what kind of Muslim are you? That's kind of the thing that I would say. And I'm by the way honorary Episcopalian. I'm invited time to time to preach in the church. Now I don't know. My friends would say, "Well, this is haram. You shouldn't do it. You don't do." I know. I look at the New Testament. They give me a section of New Testament. I compare it and I say, "Oh my God, this is so familiar to me because it's also in the Quran the same way." So I come to that gathering with combining this, and people really want to love. They want to say, "Yes, this is true." This is Anglican, by the way. Episcopalians in North America are Anglicans.
Thank you. We have two other questions. Two hands are up.
Okay.
Veronica, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Sachedina. Thank you very much for a really inspiring lecture. And I would like to ask maybe a very fundamental question, but still it's not absolutely clear to me. If you can explain, is the arrival of Mahdi somehow the part of the Day of Judgment, or shouldn't we connect these two things at all? Or is it supposed to be some time between coming of Mahdi and Day of Judgment, and for how long it's supposed to be? Thank you very much.
I think, again, a very important question that I have responded in the book that I have written, that the dhuhur, or the appearance of the Mahdi, or second coming of the Mahdi, so to speak, if I can use the Christian metaphor, is actually a separate occasion than the final judgment. So we have a doctrine in Shia tradition about raj'ah. Raj'at is return of the rule of the Imams. The first person to be resurrected will be Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So that raj'ah is a separate occasion, and the revolution of the Mahdi will take place before Yawm al-Qiyamah. It will be Qiyamat al-Sughra, a lesser Qiyamah. when the Mahdi will be on the Kaaba, on the roof of the Kaaba, and announce the day of the Zuhur. And it will mean that, that now the rule of the Mahdi will be established, and he will be the Khalifa, so to speak, and people will give bay'ah to him. Then there will be the final resurrection after the death. So even the Mahdi will die, all those Imams who will be resurrected will die, and then there will be the final day of judgment that is described in the Quran, by the way, Yawmul Qiyamah. So we are talking about Qiyamat al-Kubra and Qiyamat al-Sughra. Sughra is the lesser one, and Kubra is the greater one. And the greater one is when all world communities will come, not on us, on that day, be imamihim. They will be asking them to come with their imams. And they will come with their imams, with their prophets, with their leaders. And that's a different part that we are talking about. So there are two separate, occasions. They are interrelated, that the first has to occur, then the second will occur.
Thank you very much.
I see one more hand by F. I don't know whoever it is.
Dr. Farhad Qudusi, you can unmute yourself, please, and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sachedina. I don't know, you remember, we met each other many years ago, first Alberta, then Michigan, Dearborn. The Darul Hikmat. Yeah, very good to see you. I'm very honored here and I enjoyed the talk. Doctor, I have a question. I have a few questions related to some topics, so maybe it takes 3 minutes to put all, and then I'm looking at your explanation. You see, we are between the age of Imama, which was before us, and then the future, which you experienced, discussed about the age of reappearance. And then so we are the age of occultation. So although Mahdi is in 12 Imam is Bayba, but has what idea we have is occultation, and his character has important ramifications in our social, religious, political life today. So my concern is now the age of Bayba to the Kubra. So my main question is about, you kind of alluded to it. I want to expand, if you can expand on the deputyship of the Imam in the age of the Bayba. And I felt, that's my personal opinion, that some of the Shias do not have accepted the reality or the real meaning behind the Bayba. So okay, so let me ask my question. There could be any deputyship for Imam with all his authority when there is nobody have his qualities, characters, knowledge, and all those infallibility. So the second thing is that it is a common belief that somehow Imam is actively behind the scene guiding or contacting some of Maraja and Ulama. So if the answer is yes, wouldn't that violate or contradict the whole philosophy of the Ghaiba? I mean, so what is the meaning if that is the case? If that is, Imam is actively involved in the social, political aspects of the Shia life in the Ghaiba, so what was the reason the organization of Wakala, which were 200 years in the time of Imama, was guiding the social, political aspects of the Shia Imams from the 6 to 12 was dismantled? So I'm kind of, what I'm asking is the deputyship and the philosophy of Ghaiba and all these together. I know it's a little bit controversial, but I will thank you for all of your suggestions.
I think it's controversial in research. Research has to be done. I don't think there is any controversial. Farhad, thank you so much for this important question. Again, it's a large question, but I will try to be brief. That I think one of the things that has happened during the Ghaiba is the actual instruction received from the Imam, from the 12th Imam, before he went to the complete occultation or Ghaibat al-Kubra, so to speak, because the first 70 years were Ghaibat al-Sughra, it was a lesser, occultation, when he was in touch with his deputies whom he had appointed himself. That is the sign of that particular period in history. So from the time he disappeared, he went into Ghaiba. For 70 years, He was still in touch with his companions who were in Baghdad at that time, or some of them came to see him. Wherever they came to see him, he was there. The second period starts in 324, which is 973, 974. At that time, we mark the period of complete ghaiba. Complete ghaiba is the time when his disciples, those who studied his traditions, Rawat, those who studied his traditions were thought to be the ones who spoke about his will. Please, I'm choosing my terms very carefully, by the way. I don't want them to be mixed up when the real story comes, because I don't have any proof, I don't have any evidence to say that the Imam does come and help out the scholars. I don't have any proof. Nor has anybody claimed that the Imam during the Ghaiba is meeting with the Maraj, with Ayatullahs, and telling them what to do, what not to do. No, there is no such belief. Imam Khomeini, until his last days, never claimed. I do know, by the way, I do know for sure that people who follow him did claim that he was under the guidance of Imam Sahib al-Zaman. And so many others. There is the general popular belief among the Shia that the Imam comes and guides them. I don't believe that, because there is no proof, and there is no mujtahid. I guarantee you, by the way, there is no mujtahid who has ever claimed that I am under the direction of Imam Sahib al-Zaman in this particular fatwa. You can never do that. Fatwa is dependent upon textual evidence. It is dependent upon objective proof. If you don't have evidence, you can't talk about it. It's impossible to talk about it. It's like my talking about the spiritual presence of the 12th Imam. It doesn't have a support in objective way. I cannot really prove it. I can simply say that you need to develop the purity within you so that you can understand the appearance, the existence of the Imam. It is existentially, for me, it is very important to feel that my Imam is with me. I cannot claim it. I can never tell you when he is not, because that would be a claim. It will create another Babism and Baha'ism, which I will not do. It's a dangerous thing, very dangerous thing. Now, during these teachings of the Imam, what has happened in the Sughra, Ghaibat al-Sughra, and thereafter is the compilation of our hadith literature. Sheikh Kulaini, Sheikh Tusi, Sharif al-Murtada, these are great minds in the Shia tradition. They collected and compiled our tradition. They compiled the hadiths, that were related by the Imams. They classified them. They removed those that were, not very authentic, not very reliable. So they really did a lot of work for the future generations like us by sifting out impossibilities in the hadith literature. Those ideas that were not, in line with the Quran. Those ideas that were not in line with the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. That's what they did. And that was an important aspect of their contribution. But I must say that it's been going on, and now, I still remember reading an article in Kayhan, in Tehran during the days of a revolution. I was there, by the way. 78, 79 revolution took place. I was in Iran, and I used to read this article, As-Kulaini ta Khomeini. For example, they would try to trace the lineage from Imam Khomeini, from Kulaini to Imam Khomeini, and we don't know who studied with. I like that idea, by the way, that we try to trace teacher-disciple relationship. Teacher-disciple. And that's how we moved to the future. And that's how we move today. So today, in popular minds, even in Iran and Iraq and some places, they believe as if in popular mind. There is no evidence. I'm repeating. There is no such claim put by any Maharaja that I'm in touch with the 12th Imam. No, they will be killed, by the way. if they did make that, because that will contradict, كذابون البقاتون. They, those who are, how can you claim that you know the Imam, Imam is with you and this and that. This will create problems, So it's that kind of claim that I deny could ever happen, and that it has not happened. Alhamdulillah, until now, no marja. I'm guaranteeing you, absolutely, categorically, no marja has put a claim any time in history that I'm in touch with the 12th Imam. No. The followers have done it. They've said our marja is, in touch with the Imam, just to please themselves, just to be, sure that this is what happens. But that's not true. Evidentially, that's not true.
Can I add one point? If this is true, shouldn't our system of religious marja'iyya, the way that we learn, do research, study religion, give the fatwa, and communicate with the followers, be compatible with this belief that nobody is infallible, so everybody can do mistake, as you said. As you said, it should be collective and endeavor, and then we go to more specialization, and in a way to have a look, other sciences, like other branches, you publish a paper, somebody else criticizes you, you adjust your theory, going back. So I'll let you know better in this stuff. Can we? I feel this belief, which is Imam doesn't guide them, and everybody says that nobody guides us, is not reflected to actually each should practice at this modern time, which is so complicated and stuff. If you can explain a few minutes on that, I would thank you. If it's okay.
Yeah, I think that you must remember that the one centralization of the marja'iyya, centralization of one authority to be, accepted and followed by the believers, has been in air since the Qajar period. And Sheikh Muhammad Hassan Najafi was the first one to be accepted by all the Shia as marja. By marja, I mean their fatwa about ibadat and muamalat are valid for them. Whenever they have any difficulty, they would ask them and follow them. It doesn't mean that they are infallible. No way. Infallibility has been taken away after the 14 Masumin. Nobody can claim it. No, absolutely not. They're not infallible. They can make a mistake. They can be misinformed. They can misread the question. They can do all that, because ijtihad, if you remember the hadith that I quoted for Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam, that hadith is very clear, that all the Shia will sit and use their minds. The Shia will not stop thinking. If they stop thinking, then they will be taken for a ride. And we have been taken for a ride for many, many years, And therefore, we need to be extremely careful. And this responsibility is ours. In other words, what I'm saying is that the limits of ijtihad and the limits of rational thinking are human inability to think logically, not about any religiously imposed limitations. No, religiously, everybody can think. Everybody can do the ijtihad. I think, ideally, many people should be coming together to make a decision about what they want to do in their life. And now, if we don't know the hadith, we leave that responsibility to the one who knows the hadith. In other words, what we are looking at is the most knowledgeable person. And that doesn't mean, by the way, it is so subjective to say a'lamiyya. A'lamiyya means, the most learned. I really don't know who is most learned. It's like, professors in the university, they all say, well, I'm a full professor, and you are not a full professor. I don't know what it means. It simply means that, I'm more informed than you are, or I have a better methodology than you have, or I have better evidence than you have. It doesn't mean anything more than that. There is no claim of superiority, of perfection. And it's very academic when we say a'lamiyya. And this was worked out by Allama Hilli. When he talks about it, he says, a'lamiyya is an important issue in Wilayat al-Faqih. Wilayat al-Faqih must be Wali al-Faqih. The jurist who is going to be obeyed by others should be the one who should establish his knowledgeable position objectively, not subjectively. I can't claim that, oh, I'm better than that one. Oh, I'm better than this one. You can do that in university, secular university. You can't do that in religious organizations. Religious organizations are very much based on very important understanding that I, in all humility, I will tell you, I'm giving this fatwa, but my fatwa is a fatwa. It's not infallible. I've done all the research, I've understood the problem, and I'm telling you this is the solution. I think that's what it is. I think it's very important to keep in mind that all the Maharaja are human beings like you and me. They're more knowledgeable. Just as you can't be a professor, I can't, I can't be marja, because I don't know all the sources that he or she is reading. And I say also she, by the way, because the women mushtaheds also, because they also read, and they're also learning the religion, by the way. Something that has happened thanks to, Iranian Revolution is that women have taken upon themselves to study and to learn the law. And they have become, the founders of women's ijtihad. That women say, we are more capable of understanding our situation. We can make our decisions. Why are we to follow men in this case? It is not only modern feminism. It's very much, geared towards what we call Fatima Zahra was mentioning when her father died in the mosque. Fatima said very clearly that because I'm a woman, you don't want to accept my evidence. That's not what it is. My father taught me, and he said very clearly that the evidence that I produce should not contradict the Quran. As long as they are with the Quran, I am right. And she told the Khalifa that I am right, that we do inherit. She was very clear and adamant that nobody can deprive her of her rights to inherit her father's estate. I think that's what we are saying in our own tradition.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. We have several other people who are waiting to ask their questions. Dr. Sachedina, I hope you have energy still to answer some of the questions at least. But before we go to Sarah, if you don't mind, let me ask a question that has been sent in the chat box. Dr. Sachedina, do you want to read it yourself or I should read it for you? There is a chat box. Okay, sure. Sister Khadija Zaidi has asked, I wish to ask after the historical validity or context of the concept of Na'ibin or Nawab of the Imam during the early Ghaiba, Ghaibat al-Sughra, the concept of Nawab al-Arba'a.
Is there such a doctrine? Is there such a doctrine? Is this the question about it?
Yeah, she's asking about the validity of the historical evidence of the, about this belief.
The Wokala, yes?
Yes, yes.
You see, exactly. It's very interesting to note that there was always dispute among the followers of the Imam, 12th Imam, and Imam Hassan Askari especially. Who is representing the 12th Imam? The Wokala were many, for we know them. But in my sources I have seen many more. Those who claim to be the Wokala of the Imam, not only that, those who were collecting khums on behalf of the Imam in different regions of the Muslim world. So there were some in Kabul, there were some in Khorasan, there was some in Halab, Aleppo. In other words, there were Wokala in different parts of the Muslim world at that time. And they were all representing the Imam, by the way, Imam Hassan Askari. So when Imam Hassan Askari died, then you have the Imamat of the 12th Imam. And some of them were not able, and they came back, to Baghdad, because they were all in Baghdad at this point. Khulaini was in Baghdad. Hussein ibn Ruha al-Nawbakhti was there. All of these Wokala were there. When they were asked about, they said, yes, the Imam is our Imam and he is in the Ghaiba at the moment, and therefore, we will be collecting the homes and distributing it according to his will. And his will was, give it to my followers, give it to so and so and so and so. In other words, there was a lot of questioning, a lot of, confusion at this time, by the way. It wasn't an easy transition. It wasn't the way you and I think, that here the Imam went, then the Ghaibat al-Sughra came, the 4 Nawab were accepted, and then the line of Nawab started of, general Niyaba, so to speak, in Niyabat al-Amma, until the present day Mujtahids. It wasn't that easy, by the way. At different times, different people claimed to be the Imam's agents. For example, even during the time of Imam Riza alayhi salam, you find that some of his wakala were fighting with one another on the collection of the khums. And Imam said, no, this is not going to happen. In other words, they claimed that I'm collecting the khums on behalf of, and the other one said, no, I'm collecting it. So you read this, by the way, in the Kutub al-Rijal. You read in the biographies that they were representing the Imam, they were representing the 7th Imam. For example, 7th Imam was in jail for 23 years. How many deputies he had who were representing him and collecting khums and funds and the donations from the Shia community. Some of them were very honest people. They collected and they redistributed them among the people. Some of them were nasty thieves. They just ran away with money. Yeah, human beings, I want us to be aware that we are a community of human beings. After the Ma'asumin, the 14 Ma'asumin, we don't have any Ma'asum. No. We might have perfection. We might have most knowledgeable. We might have most, pious. But that's it. And I think I'm very proud of our scholars, by the way, who never claimed more than they were. I haven't come across any biography, Ayatollah Khoui, Ayatollah Mohsin Hakim, Ayatollah Sistani, or anybody else saying that we are in touch with the 12th Imam. We are the deputy of the 12th. No, you are not. Nobody is. Collectively, all mujtahids, all scholars represent the will of the Imam. Do you see what I'm talking about? It could be a woman. It could be Khanam al-Zahra Fulan, in Qom with this, Jose, Fatimiyya, all of this. There could be, representing the Imam. Ayatollah Milani used to tell me that there is a woman, Khanam al-Quddusi, I don't know who it was, I have no idea. I'm talking about the student days of 70s. And he used to say that if that woman was to lead the prayers, I'll pray behind her. Ayatollah Milani. And this is a woman. That means he knew the station of that woman in spirituality, and he said, I have no problem praying behind her. Oh my God, this is, chaotic. How can the mujtahid, the Ayatollah al-Uzma can say that I can pray behind that Khanam al-Quddusi? But no, she was very pious. She was in touch with so many realities that you and I are not able to see with our, blocked visage. We are blocked by our materialism. We are blocked with our own impurities. We can't really see those things. So there are possibilities that religious leaders taught us very honestly. And I'm proud of the leaders we have, that they never claim what their followers are claiming for them. If they knew what the followers are doing for them, they would say, no, I will not accept it, like Imam Khomeini used to say. There was when this Agha Tehrani used to say, Imam, he was describing Imam Khomeini like the 12 Imams, and Imam Khomeini got up. He said, no, stop. This is not for me. This is for the 12 Imams. In other words, he was aware of what they were doing and what, exaggeration meant. And this was ghulu, this was extremism. And it was not accepted by very serious ulama. I said, no, we will not accept it.
Thank you very much. A very short, quick question is, what was the name of the Lebanese, the book of the Lebanese author?
I don't remember the name, but I can.
Yawm al-Khalas, Salvation.
Yawm al-Khalas, yes.
Yawm al-Khalas, okay, yes. Yawm al-Khalas, I will write it down for everyone, yes.
Okay, I think it's a very good book. It's worth reading. About the future, predictions about what's going to happen.
I write the Arabic name because I'm not sure if it has been translated into English.
I don't believe so. I haven't seen the translation. No.
Yeah, Yawm al-Khalas, the day of freedom or something like that, right?
Yeah,
It means
the day I'm saved, you know.
the day of being saved or something. Yeah. So yeah, Sarah and then Mirza Muhammad have questions.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Doctor, for your patience.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to say real quick that the hadith I had mentioned earlier, it was it says that it was from Al-Kafi and from Al-Tusi. So, but I did appreciate your answer because that's really good as a general rule in navigating hadith before the Mahdi comes. So my other really quick question is, when Imam Mahdi alayhi salam appears, there's supposed to be a call to his followers to gather, the people who believe in his message. Can you talk a little bit about that call?
Yeah, I think you know the dua that is being recited these days, Allahumma kulli waliyik al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. That dua, by the way, is very meaningful and extremely important, by the way. And you're asking God, Ya Allah, make him my friend, my protecting friend, make him my guide, make him my eyes. You're talking about 12th Imam, by the way, and I think that dua is so much ritualized that the actual meaning is lost, and we are ritualizing it, so we don't even know what we are saying. But what I'm firmly in belief is that I'm very hesitant to say this, but there are times when you can't deny what you are seeing, and yet you can't speak about it to anyone else because nobody is, they might think that you are claiming something that has never happened to you. I think much of the experience today of Imam Sahib Zaman is of that nature, whereby you can experience, you can feel the presence of the Imam in your life, in the way you believe, in the way you act, in the way you feel. You're responsible for everything you do. When you carefully analyze your own mode of thinking and evaluating what you are doing, and when you look at the decisions you are making, many times it occurs to you that you would not have been able to make that decision yourself. Somebody must have helped you. I'm writing, and many times when I write, when I finish writing and reread it, sometimes it takes me days to write a page of a book. And I wonder, how can I write it? And then after 10 days, when I open the same page and I read it, I said, oh my God, it makes perfect sense. That's right. It has to be this way. But then the question comes up, you're not that smart, are you? How could you write this way? Where did you get this? And I have no other choice but to tell myself that there must be some hidden end here that is helping me. And I think that in many of our lives today, we see that happening. The 12th Imam, if you believe, I say, if you believe with a very important condition, then you will see. I see it that way Jesus, by the way. I see it that way Maryam, Bibi Maryam, the mother of Jesus Christ. I see them and I said, my God, this is so phenomenal. But you can't talk about it in modern days, because modern days are not geared towards spirituality. They are politicized. Even the scholars are political, and they use anything and everything to bring about their own self-promotion. I want to see that I am self-promoting, and that is defeatism. If you begin to self-promote instead of promoting Allah subhanahu, then you will be defeated. There'll be no way for you to be able to sustain your claims. May Allah help us. May God help us. I tell you.
Allahumma ameen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Mirza Muhammad, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, Professor. Dr. Abdulaziz, first of all, thank you so much for your enlightening lecture and for your patience in answering our questions. I think a lot of things that you said today will resonate with us for a long time, especially about the hidden guidance that you talked about, which is present in all our lives. And at some level, I think a lot of us here have experienced that. So thank you so much for putting that into words and validating what we've all felt at some point. Thank you very much. And also what you talked about in terms of the gender balance, where that example that you gave of the mushtahid willing to pray behind a woman, I think that's very important today in terms of the message and the equality that Shia Islam especially espouses. Sir, my question to you is about a lot of for the lack of a better word, I'll call them legends, but a lot of the legends surrounding the appearance of Imam Zamana, alayhi salam, about a certain number of companions who will be chosen to be with him, about where he will appear, about how he will appear, etc., etc. Now, all these things that we hear of and have been hearing of in majalises, in other forums, etc. What are these based in, sir? What are the texts that allude to these things, or where do they come from? If I can put it simply like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is a very dangerous question you're asking, my friend, because I must say that we have come to accept certain things from the member being related to us, being told to us, and we don't question them. And especially when my problem is that when I hear those things that contradict the very Quranic teachings, I become worried, because I really don't know where we stand. If the Prophet ﷺ were to come today and ask us, who taught you this? Who taught you to believe like this? Then I would be, ashamed to say, Ya Rasulullah, oh my Prophet, I heard it on the member. Oh my God. And then he will say, didn't you hear me telling you there will be monkeys sitting on the member and talking to you? These are, by the way, these are also the hadiths. There will come a time when the monkeys will be sitting on the member. That means you will not be able to rely on them. They will not be reliable agents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that we have reached a stage in our development where we don't read things, by the way. We Muslim communities are very poor readers. We don't read books about our religion. We rather go to the majlis and listen to the, majlis, to listen to the, narratives. But we never ask this question, how about this narrative being compatible to the teachings of the Quran, with the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can you imagine, can anybody really damage the oneness of God by believing in, such things? And I think that the more I think, then I can tell you, please listen very carefully, that there is a wishful thinking among the followers. And wishful thinking does not recognize any logical boundaries or rational boundaries. And the thinking, wishful thinking, is just pushed in such a way that it accepts each and everything that comes across without giving an opportunity to say, this is not the right thing to say. This is not the right thing to believe. Does it mean that my belief in God is dependent upon such hadiths, such narratives? No, they are not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created فَأَلْحَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Allah has created in me ability to think, ability to believe, ability to be conscientious. How can I deny the infused morality that I have? When you do recognize that, immediately then the question appears, should I believe in this? And the answer comes, no. Just discard it. Just throw it away, because it doesn't agree with what the Quran is teaching. You and I are not reading the Quran, by the way we should be reading. Imam Muhammad Baqir used to say, we should read the Quran carefully, 5 verses at a time, so that we can learn what the Quran is teaching us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. And if I can make a request to put down your email ID, if that's okay with you, so we can correspond with you and probably disturb you with more questions.
Sure, I can send. If you ask our host, Hikmat.
Sure. Brother Mirza Muhammad, if you click on the title of Dr. Sachedina on our website, on the web page of the course, you will be directed to his page on George Mason University, and there you can find his email and everything. All the information that you need are available there.
I'll do that, Professor. Thanks so much for the tip. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for being here, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Abdulaziz Sachedina, it was a great honor for all of us, for our institute, and for every one of us to listen to you and to learn from you. It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. I hope that we can somehow, maybe soon, inshallah, see you in person. And that would be a greater honor for all of us. Everyone is sending appreciation messages in the chat box, so everyone is happy, and thank you very much. Inshallah, in the future, we will have this chance to benefit from your knowledge again.
Inshallah. Please do remember me in your prayers. I need your prayers, at least to be kept on the proper guidance. Thank you.
Inshallah, you too, please. So inshallah, may Allah the Almighty hasten the reappearance of the hidden Imam, inshallah, and may He hasten the emergence of peace and justice all around the world for everyone.
For this, Fatima says hello to you, Chris.
Okay. So everyone, thank you very much for your presence too, and may God bless you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.